So, how does a person with a filmmaking degree, 1 year as a paraeducator in a special education classroom, and who just finished 2 years in the Peace Corps, find her path? Well, of course, she goes to Texas. And not big town, big city Texas. No, she goes to small town Spearman, Texas, in the Panhandle up next to the Oklahoma border. Because it turns out that in small rural places in Texas, they have a really hard time finding teachers. So even though I didn't have a teaching degree, my Aunt Carol convinced me that I should apply for a teaching position. So, with my extensive experience teaching in the Peace Corps and my many years of theater and speech and debate as a high school student, I applied to be a theater teacher at Spearman, Texas. It's Spearman High School in Spearman, Texas. And when I got an interview, I know you're surprised, I sold myself. I told them exactly what I was going to do and how I was going to teach, even though I had no idea what I was talking about. So there I was, a teacher with my own ID badge in my own classroom. And I was scared out of my pants, but I'd had awesome role models, so I was ready. So my assignment was to teach theater, communication applications, and to start a speech and debate team. I'd been to a couple trainings because they sent me on some, and I was ready to go, or so I thought. So that first day, I went into my classroom and I looked at my students and I realized I wasn't really there to teach theater and communications. I was there to teach students. And students come in all shapes and sizes and personalities. And as I looked at my students and I got to know them over that year, I realized that I was maybe a little bit of a misfit in small town Texas, and so were they. And we needed each other. So in that classroom, in that space, we had found a safe place to discover who we were as individuals, who they were as students, and who I was as a teacher. We were a family. Even still, there were several things I was not prepared for, especially considering I did not have a teaching degree. And one of the big ones was classroom management. There were two boys in particular. And these boys, they weren't bad boys. They just knew exactly how to push my buttons. And on this particular day, I don't know what time of year, probably spring, I just had had enough. And I looked at those boys, and to one of them in particular, my emotions got the best of me, and I looked at him and I said, "If you would just stop acting like an idiot, we could get on with class." The air went out of the room. I knew immediately I had made a mistake. And it wasn't because I had gotten upset or I'd lost my temper. It was the word. I'd called him an idiot. I was so ashamed of myself. And I tried everything. I tried to backtrack. I tried to make light of it. But the damage was already done. I couldn't fix it. So this boy, who felt so safe in my classroom, with one word, I had completely destroyed that. And from that day on, he was in my classroom physically, but he wasn't really there. So I went on to a bigger town, Amarillo, and I taught theater and speech and debate. Not theater. I wasn't very good at it, but speech and debate. And I took that moment with me for the entire rest of my career, from that second year to the next year and the next, because my word had had such an impact. And I don't know what happened to that boy. I do know that he stayed with theater because I religiously looked at the clippings from Spearman High School all that time. And I can only hope that another teacher understood that our words have an impact. And in one moment, my first year teaching, I had destroyed that kid. Our words can just extinguish a flame. So the words we wield are like a match. When used carelessly, they can burn. But with a little thought and intention, they can ignite a flame. Thank you.